Even when you feel low, you can still go. Even when you feel slow, you can still go. Even when there's no hope, you can still go. I never answer to no, man, I still go. Go, 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 yo, go, go.
Boom, 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 boom. Welcome back to Perspective with Ita. Darling, oh darling, do we have another amazing show today for you? On today's episode, we have a remarkable guest joining us, Nonqaba Nozuka Rwaxa, widely known as Ms Cosmo, darling. Hailing from South Africa, Ms Cosmo is a multi-talented individual excelling in various creative domains. She has made a name for herself as a DJ, radio personality, MC, podcaster, music producer, honey, and singer. Sweetie. Many of you may already know her as the esteemed host of popular shows like The Trap House and The Stir Up on 5FM. Notably, Ms. Cosmo also holds the distinction of being the first female DJ to join Channel O's esteemed DJ music show, The Basement. Stay tuned for an engaging conversation with this exceptional woman as we delve into her unique perspective and accomplishments. Ms. Cosmo, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for coming. I think this is such a blessing and such an honor for us.
Yes.
We are so grateful.
I'm grateful. Thank you for the invite. I'm happy to be here.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. So I believe that one of the best ways to get to know someone is to first start with where this person is from.
Okay.
You know, and how they were raised.
Yeah.
So please just tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I'm originally from Johannesburg, born and bred.
Mm-hmm.
And I know a lot of people always say there's no one from Joburg. That's not a real thing.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, here you go. Proof in the pudding.
Yeah.
Born and bred in Johannesburg. My family is my mom is from Durban. She's from Mlazi.
Okay.
In Durban. She grew up in Pietermaritzburg and then moved to Durban. My father's family is from Butterworth in the Eastern Cape. But I say his family because he also grew up in Johannesburg. So he grew up in Soweto, went to school in Soweto as well because my grandmother was a principal at a school here in Johannesburg, so moved everybody over to Joburg. That's why my father grew up this side as well. So originally then lived in Diepkloof until I was 5. Then Sibongo Mandela, because then we were able to move to the burbs after 94.
You know, honey.
So then moved to Sunning Hill and I went to Bryanston Primary. I went to Bryanston High School.
Lovely.
And from there, I studied at the University of Johannesburg. I got a BCom degree in finance.
Oh, lovely.
Yes.
When was this?
Oh, some years back. Jeez, girl, you on music gift. It was a long time ago. A very long time ago. But yeah, I did graduate 2010.
Is it? Yeah. I went to J 2009.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I was actually just finishing off my third year.
Yeah. Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
Tell me about the dynamic between your mom and your dad. Were you raised by both parents? And how was that like? Like, how were they as parents?
I was raised by both by virtue of them both still being in my life. Unfortunately, my parents did get divorced when I was very young. I think I was 6 years old, if I'm not mistaken. Obviously, their relationship kind of fell apart for whatever reason, but I do appreciate the fact that they still maintained co-parenting from that perspective. So even now, still have a good relationship with my father.
Wow.
Still live still obviously raised by my mother. She is fit and healthy, so was my dad. And I think the relationship between the two of them, they obviously went through whatever situations that they needed to go through. But I appreciate, like I said, that my dad still maintained to take us out for birthday lunches, involve himself in my life, my career where needed be.
Yeah.
He was still a role model and a pillar of strength where we needed him to be. Definitely was a driver and assisted obviously with school, bought me my first car.
Sure.
So he's definitely been a big motivator and tried to maintain, trying to make sure that we steer ourselves in the right directions for our lives as well.
Oh, that is beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm sure you were too young when the divorce happened, but did that, affect you?
In various ways. I think anybody who grows up in a home of divorce does kind of question certain things. You end up growing up questioning how things would have been different if you grew up all together. Would my life be different?
Sure.
Would I be carrying less strain? I mean, black tax is a real thing as well, so that obviously plays a part. Would I be carrying the burden if he was 100% in the story or whatever the case may be? So I think just from that perspective, it's just questions. It's about how would I have been shaped? Obviously, it also kind of creates a way that you look at relationships when you grow up as well and say, okay, well, this kind of happened. And some people can grow up having daddy issues. Other people can grow up just being like, yo, I want better for myself and whatever the case may be. So I think for me, it definitely made me look at life with reality more than rose-colored glasses, because that essentially can sometimes happen when you are protected and grounded within a family. So there's nothing wrong, obviously, with families that grow up in divorce. I just think people need to decide how they take that experience for themselves. And I think for me, it just made me just a little bit tougher than most.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Oh, I love that. Did you feel like you had to be there for your mom in more ways than one? Now, I'll make an example. So when I got burned, my dad left my mom. So now my mom.
So sorry about that.
Yeah. So now my mom had to be a single parent to 4 children. And obviously now with my accident, she sort of had to stop working. And for the longest of time, I've always felt this thing that I have to be there for my mom because like she's a single parent and she's going through so much in life. And there seems to sort of like be a shift where there are certain things that you can't even say to her. Like, Mom, I'm actually not okay, because you know that she's carrying so much already. Was that the same for you, or did you have like a different type of perspective?
I think it's pretty much the same. I think especially when you grow up, as children grow up, they realize the realities that they're living in. You realize things aren't as hunky-dory as they try and make it seem. I know parents try to protect children quite often to be like, no, guys, we're still fine, we're still happy, we're living okay. But as you get a little bit older, you start realizing, no, things are actually not okay. So my mom definitely did try her best to shield us from feeling ostracized or feeling like we are lacking in certain parts of our lives. But I could see the strain, I could see the hurt. But I do think my sister and I kind of pulled our weight from different perspectives. Obviously, because she was a working single mother, then we would pull our weight by coming home from school and maybe cooking dinner so that she didn't have to then stress about doing things like that. But the dynamics definitely changed, I think, a little bit later when we started working. That's when we also then started picking up where we could, helping out from a financial perspective. But I think emotionally, we did try to kind of keep ourselves as a unit and keep each other strong while we were growing up. Yeah.
Sure. And when you were a young girl growing up, did you ever experience a low self-esteem where like you felt like I'm not as perfect as I thought I was, and maybe I'm just not good, like certain things?
I think everybody kind of goes through different phases in their lives. My life felt very up and down, and it didn't necessarily feel up and down because of my family structure. I think more so than anything, I think it was just about my own achievements, because I put myself on a certain level and a certain pedestal, and if I didn't reach certain goals, then I would kind of then say, okay, cool, feeling low about this low score, maybe we can do better the next time. Or whether it was in sports, maybe I didn't win a certain medal or a certain award or whatever the case may be. I think I placed a lot of goals for myself to try and achieve, to possibly also, kind of get myself to be motivated and be better for myself. But the moments of low self-esteem, I think, also did kind of ring in from a perspective of, okay, when you don't reach those goals, how do you get better? And I think at that younger age was where I'd learned to kind of self-reflect and say, okay, cool, we didn't quite make it at this point. Where did we go wrong? How do we fix it? How do we get better? And that's why I say roller coaster, because there'll be ups, but there'll also be downs. So yeah, there was definitely a lot of that.
Oh, I love that. Do you think that you always had this goal because you felt like the security that you knew and had from your family was now no longer there, and now like you had to get to a certain place, in your life where you don't need to sort of maybe rely like a man like much later on? You know what I mean?
100%. Like I said, so being in a family dynamic like that makes you sit back and question the necessity of actually having a male figure in your life, but also makes you sit back and question, okay, well, if I'm in this position, am I one of those women who wants to marry for security, or do I want to be able to forge ahead on my own to then get myself in a position where I don't have to depend on anybody else? And for me, at that point, I think I decided at that point, obviously looking at how strong my mother was, realizing that actually I don't have to rely on somebody else for me to achieve certain things. Everything is really all on me. And I think that's where the goal setting kind of came in for me as well, was, okay, if I can achieve these things by myself, surely I can do that throughout my life. I can do that with anything that I desire, that I'm passionate about, that I want to achieve for myself. And I think that's been a running theme in my life throughout, because anything and everything that I achieve, 100% of the time, or not even 100%, maybe say 90% of the time, I do it on my own. And if I do need assistance, obviously I'll reach out for it here and there, but I'm very particular about the way that I want certain things. And I think when you become particular, you also realize that you are the only person who can depend on yourself. And that's why it will eventually find you being independent in that space and in that thinking of, okay, how do I want to get to a certain level in my life? Do I need other people? No, not really. Do I need a man? No, not really. It would be nice to have one, but I don't necessarily need one. I may want one, but I don't need him.
Oh, that is a deep thing that you just said. And I'm saying it because I think we now live in a society where a lot of women especially are at a place where they are so reliant on men and not on themselves. And I think a lot of us, we are so purpose-driven in life and in ad because of our own backgrounds, where, for example, like I had said, that, I was raised by a single mom. And for me, it was just like, I don't want this life. I don't want this poverty. Sorry. Thank you. And because of that, I strived so hard for myself. But then I found a very loving man who was so loving.
It's beautiful.
And before that, I used to have this thing, I'm a woman, I'm successful, and I don't need you. And this man sort of like tamed me down because of the love that I've received from him. Do you think that you are at a place now where if you do find a man like this, if you have, you will be able to sort of like break down those walls and allow a man to sort of like be there for you, not necessarily stop you from working and having your own dreams and your own purpose, but sort of like take care of you and love you and just say, you know what, girl, come here.
Firstly, I love that for you. I think it's such a beautiful story. let me rephrase. I do think it's important for people and for women to also understand that relationships are not the beginning and end all of life.
Yeah.
And I get it. There is a certain amount or a certain few women who feel as though marriage is the ultimate goal. And if that's their passion and that's how far their life goals go, then I'm happy for them because that's what they strive to do. However, my personal life goals are not to necessarily say that that is the ultimate pinnacle of my life. And my not idolizing marriage doesn't necessarily mean I don't want it. And I think people need to understand that because I'm independent and because I'm self-sufficient and because I can stand on my own 2 feet and look after my family and look after the people that I love and look after myself and go for my dreams and go for my aspirations, doesn't mean that I don't need somebody to complement me with this. And by complement, I mean a relationship with somebody or a relationship or a man who comes into my life would be somebody who just comes in from a loving support structure. I don't want him to change his life. I don't want him to change my life. If anything, we're just coming together with a common purpose, which is love.
Sure.
And that's where it needs to begin and that's where it needs to end. And if we love each other and we marry each other and we have children, even better. But it doesn't mean I now need to completely pull myself away from who I originally am because a man has now stepped into the position and now I must sit back and say, okay, well, my job is done now. No. Because then I lose my sense of self. And I still need to feel like somebody because I also feel in relationships, because we grow together, you also still need to be able to motivate each other to be better. And that's why I say you come in to complement and to support each other because the support is emotional. It's not a necessity to see a man and you see a bank balance. No, you're seeing a person who can be there and support you. Maybe the support you need is emotional. Maybe all you need by the end of the day is just a hug. You don't need him to send you an e-wallet. That's not the necessity that we need. Maybe you just need a hug. Maybe you just need somebody to tell you that it's going to be okay. You've had a long day. Maybe things didn't go your way. He'll just say, don't worry. Maybe tonight you sleep it off. Tomorrow in the morning, we get him and we go again. And then he goes about his day, you go about your day, and then you come back and you unpack later on in the evening. So for me, that's what I would want in a relationship. I don't necessarily want someone to save me because what have I been doing with the rest of my life that now I need this person to come in and be Superman? Do you understand?
Oh, I love that. Honey. Oh, I love that. What is your perspective on love? You spoke about love.
I believe in love. I do believe in love. I do believe that everybody needs love. I do believe that ultimately we all need companionship. And I'm very specific in my wording because earlier on I said I may want a man, but I don't need one. I don't need a man to come and change my life, but I do need support and love because that is something I can't get from my family. Yes, you can get love from your family from a sister and a mother, but you don't get that emotional connection from that. You need that from a companion who can then help you grow into a different person. And companionship, I think, is important also so that you can, create a life with each other, support each other, build towards, creating a family, whatever the case may be. One thing that somebody said to me once was, the crazy thing about life is that you'll have all these goals, these achievements, you'll have the biggest bank balance, maybe you become a millionaire. But when you pass away, they don't say your bank balance on your tombstone. They'll say, she is survived by her husband, her children, her grandchildren, her family. They don't say she's survived by her R1 million bank balance. And as much as I'm independent and I want to be self-sufficient, I'm also very aware that I want certain things for me to also then say, I've left a legacy for my children. I've left a legacy for my family. So love for me is important from that perspective to at least work for something. So if I'm constantly waking up every morning and I want to make money, what am I making that money for? I can't, rich people are lonely, and you need to at least then say, okay, cool, well, I'm making money because I'm buying my family a house and I'm taking my child through school and I'm donating money so other people can be better and they can grow up better. And I think that type of love is also just as important, and you can do that with a partner.
Sure. I love that. Do you think that you are ready to receive love? And I say that because my dad, for example, he was and still is, he was never there emotionally for me, and he was only there for me with like money. So I've never really had that thing with him, you know what I mean, where it was like, oh yeah, I love you too. And I think from that made me struggle a lot in relationships because of it. Like for me, it was just like, I'm not looking for this is what I'm looking for. And the first time a man said to me, I love you, I was just like, whatever, because of my experience and my own relationship with my dad. So now I had to go through that healing journey by myself to say, this is what I've been through, but this does not define me, or rather define how my future will look like. Do you think that you are at a point in your life where you are ready to receive love and actually just like indulge, in that love?
100%. I've been in love before, and I'm always open to love because, as I mentioned, I think part of my legacy that I want to leave behind will always be the family that has a memory of me, and I want to be able to build towards that. So receiving love, definitely always open to it. I do understand where you come from with regards to having a relationship that feels very financial. And it does create a bit of a divide, especially with the person who only just provides the finances, because when you no longer need the money, and then they're like, how about utulileni?
Exactly.
And it's like, well, I don't need your money anymore. And you thought that's all I wanted from you. So I don't have a relationship with you. I don't know how to speak to you, because every time I ever called you was just to say, okay, well, I need you to pay for this. I need you to pay for that. Now that I no longer need the money, now it's like, oh, I'm the disrespectful person because I don't know how to speak to you. So I do think it is unfortunate for those types of situations, but I do try to engage from a love perspective with my parents, also just to show them that, you know what, the way I grew up might have been unfavorable. However, it's not to say that I haven't learned from the situation and trying to change it. Right now, I stay with my sister and my nephew, and I make it a point to constantly remind my nephew that I love him, and I ask him as well, do you love your mommy? Do you love your gogo? Do you love me as well? Because I want him to understand how important it is for him to say that he loves the people in his life, because I don't want him to be too afraid to express his feelings. I think being able to be open about how you feel makes it so much easier for you to accept it. Just as much as you can give it, you can also then accept it. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Can you discuss any techniques or practices you use to manage negative thoughts or emotions?
There's nothing wrong with crying.
Yeah.
Just let it rip. You know,
My
people
girl.
try to be strong.
Yes.
Being strong doesn't help anybody.
Yeah.
Just cry.
Yeah.
Let it out.
Yeah.
And then once you've cried and you've let it out, then you patch yourself back together. And you say, okay, cool. We've been through the negativity. What now?
Yes.
Do we wallow in it, or do we fix the problem?
Sure.
And I've always been a person to be very accepting of constructive criticism. And I say constructive criticism because, especially in the world that we live in now with social media, where everybody's just negative, especially on social media, it's a war zone. But what I've chosen to do out of that is to look at the different comments, and you can outright see, okay, this person's just hating. Block them out. This person's just hating. And it stings to read the comments. It's not to say that it doesn't hurt, but you must just be able to filter through what makes sense, what doesn't. Then you look at something and you say, okay, cool, maybe that person has a point. Right at that moment, it'll hurt when you take it, but then you go back to that same comment tomorrow and you say, okay, let me dig into this thing. What is it exactly that they're trying to say to me? Do I believe in what they're saying? How do I change it? Because everybody's perspective can be changed. Today, you might sit there and you'll say, oh, Aisha's a horrible DJ. Then maybe I'll come back and be like, actually, I feel like I need to practice a little bit more. I need to work on my transitions. Or I need to change my music. So that next week when I come back and then you see me performing again, then you'll be like, oh, she's actually gotten better. Oh, I really like that set.
Exactly.
You've now made something to then change that negative into a positive by taking that constructive criticism.
Sure. Oh, I love that. There's a movie that I love by Tyler Perry and A Diary of a Mad Black Woman. And the ladies there tells the daughter that cry, my baby, because crying actually cleanses the soul.
It's therapeutic,
right?
100%.
And I'm a crier. If there's one thing about me, I'm a weeper. A good movie, I weep. A good story, I weep. Anything, I'm just like, they're so emotional. But also there's power in the crying. Because then you are then able to acknowledge your emotions and your feelings in that moment and then deal with it, like you were saying.
Yeah.
Right?
100%. And I think I've only just gotten into a position now where I felt like crying was healthy.
Sure.
I've always kind of grown up feeling as though I needed to be strong black woman, hey, you can't touch me, whatever, I'm a rock. And at some point, you bottle in so much that you're just literally going to burst at the seams.
Sure.
So for the longest time, I've always been like, no, I don't cry. You'll never see tears from me. And I think I've cried the most in the past 2 years that I ever have in my entire life.
Sure.
And not necessarily to say that my life was falling apart, but I think I just allowed myself to feel what I was feeling, to go through what I was going through so that I could heal and then grow and then be and move on from whatever situation I was going through. Because there's nothing wrong with admitting that things are not okay right now, but I can then get better from this, you know? So it's taken me a while, but I'm appreciating the fact that I've allowed myself to become more sensitive.
Oh, I love that. Can you discuss any mental health challenges that you faced in the epitome of your success as like DJ Ms Cosmo's that we know her and you know that, listen, I'm actually just like going through the most.
Yeah. I think the moment that kind of hit a lot of entertainment was definitely during COVID. Especially because we couldn't work, we couldn't be out, we couldn't make money. And it was a very difficult time, especially when you're a breadwinner at home. It's hard for you to then make sense of needing to scale down, needing to figure out a way on how we're going to survive. Your savings run out. It's been 18 months now. We're not out, we're not performing, we're not allowed to do anything. And it was a very difficult time for me. It was also difficult for me to even stand up and realize that, look, this thing is bigger than me. I can't act like Superwoman anymore. I need to ask for help.
Sure.
Very difficult moment for me personally, because it's not something that I was able to do before. And I think it did kind of open me up to understanding that people actually do care about you if you make them understand where you're coming from. I wouldn't necessarily say that I'd gotten down and to the point of not being able to manage. But I think what did help me during the last, maybe say, year and a half or 2 years that I've been in it, has definitely been therapy. And I say that because I'm appreciative of the fact that I had an outlet.
Sure.
I think if I didn't have the outlet, I might have gone deeper and darker into a hole that I wouldn't have been able to climb myself out of. And I constantly always implore people to go for therapy. And I understand it's very expensive. So sometimes people can't afford it. There are subsidized options as well that government does offer. But I do implore people to go for therapy sessions, whether it's once a month, whether it's once every 2 weeks, whether you can afford to go every week. Some people don't even know that medical aid covers about 15 sessions a year.
Yeah.
So maybe that's all you can afford. Maybe you can afford your medical aid, but you can't afford to pay a therapist. Then maybe you include that in your sessions for the year. But I think my therapist has definitely helped me just to be sensitive, to unbottle myself, because I bottled myself in for too long.
Sure.
And it's not that I was crazy or I was going through a down and out, or I was losing my mind and my world was falling apart. No, it's just everyday stresses, anxiety of how I was going to make money, anxiety of how I'm going to look after my family, anxiety of whether I'll be able to still be cool next year, because in entertainment you have to be cool every year.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's all these different anxieties that people are going through. You're losing friends, you're losing relationships. Everybody goes through these things, but everybody acts like this tough box that can't be broken. At some point, you're going to bust at the seams because you're taking in too much and you're not letting it out. And sometimes maybe people do have people that they can outlet to. Maybe they've got a friend that they can speak to. That's perfectly okay. I think it's just important not to keep everything in and have an outlet to kind of speak about certain things. It was just difficult for me at those times to speak to the people I was staying with, because they're the same people that I'm trying to protect, that I'm trying to help, and I'm trying to make sure that there's food on the table. So it was very hard for me to then express to my family to say, hey guys, grocery this month, bunzima. But it's like, okay, but who do I speak to about the stress that I'm going through? And that's where therapy kind of helped me with that. So I do want people to understand that therapy is not for crazy people. It's literally just a place where you can get a different perspective, somebody who doesn't know you, who won't judge you from your actions. Because I think that's the difficulty that we sometimes have with the people in our lives, is that, hey, but you're going to judge me because you know what I was drinking last week. Do you know what I mean? You'd be like, oh, when are you complaining about money, but bopuza? You don't want that kind of feedback. You just want to be honest. And that's what therapy kind of affords you, you know?
But also, what I'm taking from this conversation is that you are the strong one. And therefore, in most cases, when you're the strong friend or the strong family member, when you also need help, it's like, no, not you.
Yeah, 100%. And that's also why I said in the past 2 years during the COVID period was when I had to be honest with myself and say, you can't be the strong friend right now.
Yes.
Let's be real. The world is burning. And when the world is, everybody is burning. It's not just me. So there's nothing wrong with asking for help. And I think that was at a point where I really needed to bring my guard down and understand that this is bigger than me. We'll get out of it. But for now, just ask for help so you can survive, so you can get through this motion. And when things get better, you'll be able to then return the favor or pay it back or pay it forward or whatever the case may be. And being the strong friend or being the strong family member doesn't necessarily mean that you don't have emotions. And I think it allowed me to be able to start speaking to my sister to say, look, this is what I'm going through. And then she was able to then come together and say, okay, well, with the little I have, this is what I can assist with. But if you keep quiet, then you don't know what they can actually help with, even if it's just buying bread for the week or whatever the case may be. You know?
Sure. Ooh, I love that. What does purpose mean to you?
Purpose for me is, I think it's what you dream of. And everybody has a dream. I think since we're children, we always have these aspirations of how we want to change the world and how we want to be and how we want to leave a mark in this world and what legacy we want to leave behind and how you want to be remembered, what you want to be written on your tombstone. And I think for purpose, it's making a change and leaving a mark. And sometimes that purpose doesn't necessarily have to be the entire world knows my name, so now I'll never be forgotten. Sometimes purpose can be something as minute as changing one person's life. It doesn't necessarily have to be everybody. And that one person can be a family member, that person can be a complete stranger. Sometimes it's even just a conversation where my purpose in life is just to give positivity. And maybe my positivity will change you, and maybe my positivity will help you think of yourself in a different perspective. It might change the way that you had considered yourself just because I've kind of given you that positivity. So for me, purpose is being able to leave something with someone and seeing how that betters themselves, better their life.
Oh, do you do the same for you, for yourself? Like where like you are just like, you know what, the same energy and love and power and purpose that I'm going to give to other people, I'm also going to give that to myself.
I try to. I don't do it as often as I should. I can admit to that. However, I do find myself in bouts of needing to kind of pick myself up where I'm just like, okay, we've been wallowing for too long. Let's get out of this rut, you know? So I do find myself like waking up certain mornings, like maybe I'll have a bad week, and then the week after that I'll be like, okay, well we're done crying now. We've cried it all out. It's all out. How do we now step up and do better and feel better? So I do kind of give myself a few pep talks. I do kind of, give myself that positivity from that perspective. But also I do find it necessary to also reward yourself, especially if you're constantly ticking and you're always working towards something. I do think it's important for people to kind of reward themselves in little ways. And those little ways could be anything that you think is important to you. Maybe it's a chocolate for the day. Or maybe you buy yourself a bottle of wine to say, hey, you know what? I deserve it. Whether you guys can judge me, I don't care. I'm going to do it. Maybe it's a night out with the girls. Maybe it's going shopping. Some people like retail therapy. I've got a finance brain, so I always think about the money. And I'm like, okay, we can't spend too much here, So that's the unfortunate thing for me, is that I'm always counting every cent. So the one way that I've kind of chosen to reward myself is, no matter what, once in the year, I have to travel. And for me, that allows me to switch off. It allows me to, firstly, I'm in another country, so you can't call me. You can't text me. I'll reply and say, I'll see you next week. I'm not here. Leave me alone. So I can, I've got that armor to say, I'm not involved for this week. I'm away. I'm enjoying the world. I'm being myself. I'm in a space where nobody knows who I am. Right. When I'm at home, I'm Ms Cosmo. But if I travel to Paris or to another country, nobody knows Ms Cosmo there. So I can be who I am. I can have fun. I can get pop drunk the whole night and not worry about who's taking pictures. Do you know what I mean? Like little things like that, where I can just be free and enjoy different cultures and enjoy food. I love eating different foods and traveling and seeing the world, because for me, that also kind of opens my mind up to the possibilities of what else is possible in the world. So little things like that, I think, are very important. Rewarding yourself, I think, is what everybody needs to kind of do.
Oh, I love that. Are you happy?
Relatively, I would say I am. I wouldn't bog myself down and say, oh, my world is over. No. I think I've got the same stresses that every other human who's trying to make money has. But I do think I could be happier. And I think everybody, it's that typical thing where people say, you'll always kind of adjust to your level of comfort. The same way, like you'll get a promotion and you start earning 10,000 Rand more than you earned last month. Your expenses will now adjust to that new money. So I think people won't always be 100% happy, because they're always kind of reaching for something new or reaching for a new level of happiness. So that's why I can say relatively, yes, I am happy. I think I could be happier, but I can always just strive towards it,
Oh, is there a time in your childhood when you look back now and you think, this is the reason why I'm sitting here today?
I would say there is moments in my childhood that I can look back to as to why I'm an entertainer. Because I think every entertainer's got that story of them being forced to perform for their parents, friends, and things like that.
5 years.
Exactly. Okay, it's your turn now. Okay, time again. So I definitely had those moments as well. But I think the crazy thing is that I never actually even thought I was going to get into DJing. So for me, I was always just like, okay, maybe I'll do something. Maybe I'll be on TV, or maybe I'll be a dancer, or maybe, I don't know. And as time kind of goes on, and my getting into finance was because I was just like, oh, this entertainment dream is not real. But I didn't realize at the back of my mind that I was actually still doing something entertainment-wise, because when I was in high school, I had started doing this thing of creating like compilation CDs where there was this boy in my class, this Indian boy, who had a computer. I didn't have one at the time. So I would send him like a list of songs and I say, okay, make the CD this week, and then I'd pay him. So I was like, that was our barter system. Like, okay, here's a 20 Rand for the week, and I buy the CD, download the songs. Obviously, he was, it was definitely, copyright infringement back then, but don't arrest me, please. But yeah, so I would collect a lot of CDs from there. I started that in high school, imagine. So from I think it was grade 10 or something, By the time I got to varsity, I'd had like a full-on CD bag of like
Wow.
compilations.
Sure.
But again, I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
For me, it was just, it's nice music to play in the car, to go to the brides, to have a
Yeah.
good time with the homies.
Yeah.
And only later did someone then ask me a question to be like, why did you just get into DJing? You clearly have an ear for music. You
Sure.
clearly have an ear of songs to select and how to create a vibe and a mood. And if it wasn't for that one person to suggest it to me, I don't think I would have actually gotten into it. And that's why even when I say with purpose, sometimes you could change somebody's life just by giving them a positive anecdote like that. And that's when I sat there and I considered it. And when I got my first job, that's when I was able to afford it. And I went for DJ lessons and I'm here now.
There you are.
Yeah.
If you could go back in time and fix a regret that you have in your life, where would you go?
Ooh, fix a regret. I don't know if I would change anything. I think everything kind of happens for a reason. You know that thing that they say in the movies, like if you had a time machine, you go back and you change something, but then you alter the entire future or your entire. So I worry sometimes about changing specific moments in my life, purely because then I don't know if I would have landed up where I am right now. I do think everybody goes through certain things for those reasons, and I do think even our mistakes happen for a reason because you learn from them. And I'm a big advocate from learning from my experience and learning from my mistakes, because if you don't burn your hand, you won't know not to touch the stove.
Sure.
Do you know what I mean? So for me, I don't know if I would actually even go back to certain moments and be like, that was tricky. Maybe not.
Yeah, sure. If you had a 60 seconds call from someone, dead or alive, who would it be and what would you say?
Dead or alive? Ugh, the people who are alive, I'll phone them. It's fine. I've got airtime. Got airtime, I'll phone them. I think I would call my grandmother. I had a really good relationship with my mom's mom, my grandmother on my mom's side. And I think everybody in the family kind of felt like they had this like moment and, you know, oh, Gogo loves me, whatever. And everybody felt special in her eyes. But I always felt like I had a very like special moment with her. She died when I think it was like 9 or 10, can't remember. But I think I would love to speak to her just to kind of hear her perspective on where I am now and how I could possibly do better. She was very wise, very patient, very loving. And I think those are the things that a lot of us kind of took away from her. And I think I would want to kind of understand how to be a little bit more gentle in my approaches and yeah, just to kind of hear how she's feeling about the way that we've progressed, you know?
Nice. Sure. Thank you so much. We have come to the last segment of the show where I ask you your perspective on various things. So, number one, what's your perspective on freedom?
Everybody's got freedom. Everybody's got free will. I think some people don't use it to their advantage. I think a lot of people like to cage themselves, and they use that as an excuse to not go for what they want. And sometimes I feel like you'll give yourself restrictions and say, oh no, I've got a 9 to 5, I can't do A, B, C, D. Who says you can't? Who says you can't work around it? Yes, you're working from 9 to 5. So what's happening between 6 and 8?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. What's your perspective on power?
People can be drunk off of power, very drunk off of power. There's nothing wrong with power. I think we can all kind of strive for it. I think we just need to be able to manage it. And if you can't manage it, you need to have people around you to help you manage it. Purely because it is very intoxicating. It is a drug and it's a reality. I've seen many people change because they feel like they've got power. And that's why I'm saying there's nothing wrong with achieving a sense of power, but know how to use it. I think use it knowing that you've got people around you to also keep you in check on how to use it.
Sure.
Yeah.
What's your perspective on spirituality?
I think everybody's got a spirit. I mean, we've all got, everybody's got ancestors. Everybody's got a God that they pray for. Whether you are Islam, Hindu, Christian, whether you are African and we are pasha to your ancestors, whatever the case may be. And I think it's always important to have a higher being or a higher power to help you through, because without faith and without hope, what would we be? You know, and I think that's where spirituality kind of comes in to allow us and to help us have a sense of purpose and faith to say, okay, cool, I know I'm going to get through this, but you need something to lean on to help you get through a certain perspective. And that's why I think it's important for someone to have a sense of spirituality, and not to be judged for your choices. Again, free will, you can do what you want with your freedom and your free will. Just because I choose to pasha and to pray doesn't mean you can't do the same. And you might feel like, oh, that's against what I believe in. That's fine. Your beliefs are your beliefs. Don't bog down on mine just because you disagree with me.
Oh, I love that. I wish we had this conversation earlier because I want to say more about that. But what's your perspective on having a voice as a woman in the world?
Oh, I'm a big advocate for females. I'm a big advocate for women in power, women with skills, women who can do just as good in the world as the men can. I think, you know, it's sometimes it's very boring having that whole conversation of male-dominated industry, boring. But I do want to push forward and to propel people who deserve to be in certain situations. And if those people who deserve to be there are female, because 9 times out of 10, if you check most skills, women can do a job much better than a man can. Come on. It's just that our spaces and our industries don't allow it. So for me, I will always try and push forward somebody who I think has the relevant skill to do a certain job. But again, for me, I won't push somebody forward just because they're women. Because I also feel you need to be able to maintain and be able to handle that position once you do receive it. So I'm not there with the nepotism of, okay, well, the female vote, so you need to then put this person forward. No. If I think you are mind-blowing, by all means, you'll get 100% of my support.
Sure. What's your perspective on self-love?
Self-love, I think, is 100% important because you won't be able to get yourself up. You won't be able to get yourself through any situation if you don't have self-love. And I say that in the same space as, you know, when somebody's going through something and your friends gather around and they want an intervention, maybe you are a drug addict and they're just trying to like get you clean and get rid of this thing from your situation, and you are just not allowing it. And that's where self-love comes in, because you're the only person who can get yourself out of that dark hole. Yes, they can be there to pull you up, but if you don't put your hands up, no one's going to pull you. So you have to make the decision and say, I love myself enough for me to get myself out of that situation. And maybe I can't do it alone, but here's people who want to help me. They love me. I need to love myself. Let me get myself through. So I think self-love is important from that perspective. You can only rely on yourself initially to take the first step before everybody else can kind of come through.
Oh, I love that. So we are currently in Youth Month. What is your perspective on being a youth, and what advice would you give to a youth who has no
How many
hope?
more years of youth do I have?
Right? And what advice would you give to a youth who has no hope and no grit to keep moving?
My perspective on youth is, you guys have so much power in your hands. You have so much availability, so much opportunity. Sometimes it irritates me because I deal with a lot of young people who I feel like are very entitled and very expectant of things like, okay, well, just you have the opportunity, just give it to me. It's like they don't have that will to work and that will to push and that will to hustle. But that's also just a certain amount of people. I'm not saying all youth are like that. But it really does get to me that there's a high level of expectancy from young people. I do think that there's a lot more opportunities for them right now, and they can strive to take over the world if they want to. Also, things are so much more accessible now with the internet, with social media, with being able to even just jump on a plane and go to another country. That was inaccessible to our grandparents and our parents. It's now 100% at your feet if you want to go and tour the world for 60 days or whatever the case may be. If that's what you want to do, if that's what your heart desires, go for it, make it happen. So I'm very excited for the youth of right now, because I think they can really change the world and change the perspectives of our country, of our continent, of the world. They just need to kind of put their heads together and make it happen. And for youth right now who might be struggling, I would say two heads are better than one. You know, I think the youth also kind of sometimes struggle with collaboration.
Sure.
Because it's this whole, I want to be number one.
Yeah.
I want to be the only one. There's so much power in collaboration, and I really feel like they need to kind of get together and grow each other. You know, many people, and I know many business people also kind of speak about this quite often, and they say, what's the point in owning 100% of nothing?
Yeah.
Because you're not getting anywhere.
Yeah.
You know, whereas you can divide up your company, and maybe you've got 100 shareholders in your company, but by coming together, you guys are building this massive monstrosity where you guys are now all, every one of you are millionaires because you've all come together.
Sure.
So I think collaboration is important for the youth.
I love that. All right, so we've come to the end, and I'd like you to please take that mirror for me.
Oh.
I'm gonna ask you a question. Nani, what do you see when you look into this mirror?
I don't even know how to answer this question. I see a woman, I see a hustler, a fighter, somebody who's determined, somebody with big dreams, somebody who's passionate, somebody who's willing to help others. But I also see somebody who is vulnerable and I think somebody who could do more with more hands, more assistance, but also somebody who's willing to leave a mark in the world.
Sure.
Yeah. One song at a time.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Sure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it. Nonqaba, from one lit candle to another. Keep shining.
Thank you.
And may your candle ignite a million others. Thank you so much.
That's actually what it says here on my tattoo.
Really?
Well, it's similar. My dry arm. My tattoo here says, a candle loses nothing by lighting another candle.
Exactly. Right? And there was a candle that tried to burn me, tried to ruin me, but that very same candle lives within me. And that candle is now, igniting other people's candles.
Exactly.
So keep shining.
Keep shining. I love that. I love that you've taken the positive out of a negative situation.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Sure. Thank you so much. And from me, Mrs. Sekhu-Pedi, keep your perspective.